Hello and welcome to today's SGIA webinar, SGIA Research Reports, Markets and Products. My name is Dan Marks. I'm SGIA's Director of Content Development, and I'll be the moderator for today's program. On behalf of SGIA, I'd like to welcome you and let you know that our webinar system allows you to ask questions through your computer. So if you have questions at any time during the presentation today, do not hesitate to fire those in, even now. If you want to get an early question in, we'd be more than happy to receive that. Before we get started, I would like to just do a quick introduction of what we like to call our SGIA Research Dream Team. We have Olga Dorokhina, who is the Research Coordinator at SGIA, and we have Andy Paparozzi, who is the Chief Economist at SGIA. And they have worked together to really kind of upgrade this annual survey that SGIA has done and to really expand what we're asking and expand the level of insight that these programs, these surveys can offer the industry at large. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Olga and Andy. Welcome.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay, let's begin. Okay, my name is Olga Dorokhina, and I will cover the first part of the presentation, which will be focusing on three segments: graphic and sign producer, garment decorators, and manufacturers and suppliers. Andy will talk about commercial printers and functional printers, and of course about the economy at the end. But let's begin. So, in January 2019, we started our new initiative, quarterly industry surveys, with the goal to keep the industry informed and updated throughout the year with the current developments in the industry. And the first survey was about markets and products. We've got 427 responses, and the industry segments that we covered are graphic and sign producers, garment decorators, functional industrial printers, commercial printers, packager converters, and of manufacturers and suppliers. The first segment I will talk about is graphic and sign. We've got 121 responses, and we will go through the highlights of the survey. The full report will be available online in May 2019. The main highlights are here. The majority of the companies are small companies with less than 20 employees, representing 71.5% of the respondents. Their annual sales revenue is up to $3 million, and this is true for 73% of the companies, about 3/4 of the respondents. Of course, those companies are companies with a long history, at least 20 years in business. This is the story for 59.8% of the respondents. What type of businesses are they? More than half of them serve other businesses. Only around 10% serve consumers, and more than 1/3 of the companies serve both business to consumers and business, serve both segments, businesses and consumers. Geographically, they are spread. The majority cover local markets, 72.1%. More than half of the companies serve regional and national markets, and about 1/4 serve international markets. But they cannot afford to focus just on one area, so at least 2 areas are covered by more than half of the companies. 56.3% mentioned that they cover at least 2 out of 4 possible geographical areas that were listed in the survey. They call themselves graphic and sign producers, but graphic and sign industry is not the only industry they serve. When asked about other industries, they told us they also serve commercial printing industries. 26.4% do that. They also serve functional printing, 19%. They serve garment decoration markets, 13.2%, and about 10%, like 8.3%, serve package printing and converting. Of course, the majority, the most part of the revenue comes from the graphic and sign segment. But if you look at the other segments, you can see that about 1/3 of the revenue comes from commercial printing, 26.9%. 1/5 come from functional printing or garment decoration, and 17% of the revenue comes from package printing and converting industry. So that's why when we ask the companies to identify themselves, this is a real challenge, because they are not graphic and sign producers anymore. They are much more than that. On the production side, we found out that digital continues to rule the market. 80.1% are digital, either entirely or as part of multi-technological approach. They tend to use their production really efficiently. More than 50% of their production is used by 69.2% of the companies. Also, they try to focus on finishing services. 81.3% provide finishing services to their customers. And the top ones mentioned by our respondents are installation, 68.8%, and lamination, same percent, 68.8%. There is also an active exchange of services among printers. 56.3% provide production services, 70% purchase production services, 31.3% provide finish and post-printing services, and more than half, 51.3%, purchase finishing services from other printers. Besides installation and lamination, they also provide grommeting, mounting, and die cutting services. This is on the production side. What about the markets they serve? The average number of markets is 7. Here on the slide, you can see the top currently served markets, and they are educational institutions, corporate branding, architecture, construction, food services, retail, non-profits, and business to consumer. And here in the table, those are the markets that are served by at least half of the respondents. Which markets they would like to enter? And the desired markets are mentioned on the right-hand side. Those are hospitality services, interior decorators and designers, exhibit manufacturers and contractors, healthcare, athletic, government and government contractors, and food services. What is the perception of market growth? The markets with the highest growth potential are listed. The growth potential is listed on the in the right column. So those markets are architecture, construction, interior decorators and designers, healthcare, corporate branding, hospitality services, athletic, and business to consumer. And we can see that although interior decorators are not very popular among graphic and sign producers, there is quite high interest among the community members to enter this market, because graphic and sign producers feel that there is a potential in this market. This is just one example. What about the products? The average number of products served is 8. Which products are the most popular among graphic and sign producers? We can see that window graphics, 85.3%, banners, 84.3%, at least 3/4 provide labels and decals. Posters and presentational graphics is provided by 69.6%. Fleet and transit graphics by 63.7%, and vehicle wraps are also very popular, as well as backlit signs and retail graphics. Although the retail segment was kind of problematic for the graphic and sign producers, it still tops the list for them. There is still a demand from the retail side. The most desired products are digital displays. this product tops the list. Like 21.3% of the companies identified this product as the one they would like to provide in the future. Although recently it's not very popular. I assume that this is a new product area for the graphic design community, and they feel the potential there. Other desired products are retail graphics, wall architectural graphics, backlit signs, fine art, and dimensional signage. What about the growth potential? Again, we can see that digital displays top the list. Like at least 3/4 of the graphic design community believe that this product area have a great growth potential, 77.3%. Then it's wall and architectural graphics for 67.4%. Then, of course, vehicle graphics, window graphics, and banners. When asked about the other segments they serve, graphic design producers identified a number of segments, as I mentioned before. And we knew that they do serve different segments. But in this survey, we decided to go deeper in the subject. We wanted to know what exactly they are doing there, what markets they serve, and what products they produce. And we found out that there is a trend that the markets basically stay the same. What changes are the products. So companies tend to stay in the same markets, but offer new products to those markets. So those who serve garment decoration industry provide t-shirts and bags. On the commercial side, it's all about point of purchase and displays and marketing collateral. On the functional and industrial printing, it's all about decals and labels of course dominate the packaging segment. After all those questions about markets and products, we wanted to know how the businesses are doing. So there are 5 business indicators that we wanted to measure for each industry segment, and we wanted to see how they are, how they were, comparing current year to the last year, how they are, and how they are expected to be. For example, we wanted to know their perception of sales, comparing current sales with the previous year, and their expectations for the sales. How do they look into the future? What they expect their sales to be in the next year? Production amount and amount of work, employment, prices for products sold, and pre-tax profitability. Those 5 business indicators were measured. And here on this slide, you can see the percentage of the companies who identified the increase in those indicators. And you can see that, of course, sales and production amount of work, they top the list. They are the highest one. And looking into the future, each indicator is growing. Like it's true for sales, they were high enough, the increases, but they're also growing. The expectations are high for the future. For sales, production, and amount of work. For employment, you can see that it's twice as much. So if the increase in employment in the current year was if only 28.2% of the companies experienced increase in their employment, for the future year, for the next year, the number grows to 56%. More than half of the companies expect to hire more. Prices for products sold also increased from 41% to 64%. And the most interesting part is pre-tax profitability. So companies are very optimistic about their future. They expect their profitability to increase. If in the current year, only about half of the companies had increase in their profitability. For the upcoming year, this number increases for almost 2/3 of the companies. And I will make a note on that. We wanted to know how the companies are planning to get there, how they're planning to decrease the gap between sales and profits. So we launched our second quarter survey about financial part. We asked questions about the financial ratios, and we are gathering the data on this question, and hopefully we will have the answers for you how the companies are planning to improve their pre-tax profitability. And we should have the results of this survey most likely in early summer, June. Okay, enough about graphic and sign producers for now. We are moving to garment decorators. The number of the companies who responded to our survey was 94. The majority are small companies. 78% had less than 20 employees, and their annual sales revenue was no more than 3 million for 78.2% of the companies. This segment is younger than graphic and sign producers. We can see that 68.3% have been in the industry for at least 10 years, but there is a small part of the there is a small segment of the respondents, about 1/3, 31.7% of the companies have been in business for less than 10 years. I will call them new businesses. So what kind of businesses they are? More than half serve other businesses and consumers at the same time. About 1/4 focus on other businesses, and 18.5% serve consumers only. Their representation on the local level is higher than the representation for graphic and sign producers, slightly higher. 3/4 of the companies are local companies. 60.9% serve on the regional level. Half of the companies are national, and only 19.6% are international companies. And again, they cannot afford to serve only one area. 53.2% serve at least 2 of them. So they try to cover large geographical areas to make their businesses profitable. They are garment decorators. Are they? 98.9% identified that they serve garment decoration segment. But please take a look. More than 1/4 of the companies also is serving graphic and sign segment. They are the minority, 7.4% serve commercial printing, only 3.2% serve functional, and 1% serve package printing and converting. Of course, the largest part of their revenue comes from garment decoration, but package printing and converting also brings a good portion of revenue, and you can see that graphic and sign, commercial and functional printing are providing around between 15 and 19% of their revenues. So they're not garment decorators only, they serve other industries as well. In terms of production, what kind of technologies do they use? More than 3/4 of the companies rely on multi-technology, and about 1/3 of the companies use digital to a various extent, either entirely or as part of their multi-technological approach. They try to use their production wisely. 67.6% use at least 50% of their production. They provide finishing services, but not to the same extent as graphic and sign producers. More than half of them do that, 52.6%. And the most popular finishing services are bagging, tagging, and fulfillment. Also, there is exchange of services among garment decorators. What about the markets they serve? Top 7 currently served markets are business to consumer, athletic, corporate brands, educational institutions, non-profits, retail, and food services. The most desired are government, healthcare, transit, ad agencies, hospitality services, athletic, and printing for the trade. Which markets are considered to have the highest growth potential? Again, interior decorators and designers, architecture, construction. We already saw those markets for when we looked at the graphic and sign printers. They also consider those markets to be growing. Printing for the trade, business to consumer, healthcare, arts, entertainment, and retail. What are the most popular products among garment decorators? Of course, those are t-shirts, everybody producing them, 96.6%, bags, performance wear, hats, caps, blankets, and towels. Among the most desired products are patches and appliques. And then there are bags, performance wear, hats, caps, and blankets, and towels. There is not such a big variety of products here, but you can see that t-shirts are produced by everybody, and patches are desired by every 10th company, desired product to produce. What about the growth potential? Although t-shirts are served by everybody, almost everybody, you can see that 61.4% still think that there is a growth potential in this market. So the market is huge and their demand is there. Performance wear, of course, more than 3/4 of the companies believe that there is a high growth potential in this market. Patches and appliques for more than half of the companies, and hats and caps as well. So those were the most desired products. The products considered the most having the highest growth potential. We saw that garment decorators also work in the graphic and sign industry. So and we found that they tend to serve the same markets, but they produce different products. What kind of products they produce in graphic and sign industry? Labels, decals, 77.8%. 63% produce banners, soft signage flags, and 63% produce window graphics. Those are the top products identified by garment decorators who also serve graphic and sign industry. How do they look into the future? Again, we look at the 5 indicators and compare them, compare their increases, current increase and expected increase. And we can see that sales and production are the top indicators. They have the highest numbers, and their look into the future is even better. So if 79.4% of the companies had increase in sales during the current year, 85.9% expect this increase in the future. For production, the current is 74.2 and the expected 79.7. Again, if we look at the employment, although 28.8% had increase in employment during the current year, for the upcoming future year, it's 51.6%. It's significant increase. There is an increase in prices for products sold and pre-tax profitability. How and why they expect their profitability to grow, we are exploring during our second quarter survey, focusing on the financial ratios information, as I mentioned before. Manufacturers and suppliers. For this particular segment, we did not have a long report because, as you understand, the products are printing equipment and supplies, and the markets are printers. So we focused on the industry segments they serve. We asked them about their business indicators. So if you look at this slide, we can see that they serve a variety of industries. They serve all printers to different extent. The majority serve graphic and sign community. And about half of them serve functional printers and commercial printers, 42.6% serve garment decorators, and 39.4% serve packagers. And the revenue contribution varies from about 11.6% for package printers and producers and converters, to more than 30% coming from the graphic and sign segment. How do they look into the future? Although sales and production is growing, employment is growing, and pre-tax profitability is growing, we can see that the expectations for the prices are kind of negative. For the current year, the increase in prices was experienced by 48.4%, but in the future, only 38.2% expect increase in prices for the products they sell. So, is sale coming to the printing industry? Is it the decrease of the pricing because of the increased competition? We will find out. And now I would like to introduce Andy Paparozzi. He will continue with the presentation talking about commercial printing, functional, and economy.
That's right, Olga. Thank you so much. And let's begin with commercial printing. 82 companies that participated in our research define their primary business as commercial printing, and they are a diverse group with annual sales ranging from less than $500,000 to more than $50 million, but representative of the commercial printing segment at large, the majority are small. 63.1% have annual sales of less than $3 million. Location, more than 90% are located in the United States. A 68% majority sell exclusively business to business, but nearly 27% also sell to consumers, and a small percentage also sell exclusively to consumers, and all have been in business at least 3 years, and 72.2% have been in business for more than 20 years. So they have a lot of experience in the industry. Next slide, please, Olga. Thank you. Also representative of the commercial printing segment at large, the majority use both digital and analog production technology, but overall, digital is clearly dominant. 55.6% are either entirely or mostly digital, 3 times the 18.5% who are entirely or mostly analog. And when we look at how much of their production capacity they're using on the next slide, we see that there really is no norm for capacity utilization. In our sample, capacity utilization rates ranged from less than 30% to over 90%. 2/3, however, do operate somewhere between 51% and 80% of capacity, with the highest percentage by far, 29.6% in that 71 to 80% range. And that's very interesting, but capacity utilization alone tells us very little about profitability. Is the capacity being used efficiently? Is the company generating sales that support efficiency and profitability, or has it loaded up on work that keeps the equipment busy but doesn't really do much for the bottom line? And how efficient overall is the company? As Olga mentioned, we're currently conducting a very important financial benchmark survey, and that survey is investigating the relationship between capacity utilization and profitability. And on our next slide, I think are the 2 most important results of our research pertaining to commercial printing. Number 1, the majority of commercial printers surveyed are participating in printing industry convergence. 2/3 have entered at least one segment in addition to commercial printing. And secondly, penetration has clearly been deepest by far into the graphic and sign segment. 65.4% of the commercial printers surveyed have now entered graphics and signs, deriving an average of 22.3% of their revenue from that segment. Products offered. The commercial printers we surveyed, like commercial printers at large, offer a broad range of products, with the most widely offered related to marketing and promotion, direct mail, marketing collateral, point of purchase advertising. But as we learned, they are aggressively moving into graphic and sign work. And our next slide shows that 62.7% offer posters and presentation graphics, 60% banners and soft signage and flags, and 58.7% window graphics. Additionally, 53.5% want to add at least one more graphic and sign product. That's greater than the 44.6% who want to add a commercial printing product. So you can see, because of some of the issues in their traditional print markets, commercial printers are participating in printing industry convergence. They're expanding, diversifying, and their top target is, without question, graphic and signs. Markets served extend across the economy. It's hard to name an industry that doesn't purchase commercial printing in one form or another, but the highest percentages of commercial printers we surveyed provide their commercial printing products to nonprofits, corporate branding, and food services, and their graphic and sign products, which, as we said, are becoming increasingly important to their business, to food services, corporate branding, and educational institutions. Finishing services, I don't think you'll be surprised to hear that practically all the commercial printers we surveyed offer finishing services, with bindery, lamination, and mounting the most widely offered. I think more significantly, 75.9% offer services other than printing, such as mailing, fulfillment, and customized marketing programs that combine print, electronic communications, and support services such as database creation and analysis, search engine optimization, and response tracking. And these services, these non-print services, are increasingly important across the commercial printing segment as commercial printers get involved in their clients' work earlier, stay involved longer, and satisfy a broader range of their communications needs. Put simply, as our research showed, commercial printing is increasingly about a lot more than printing. Performance. Sales increased last year for 68.5% of the commercial printers surveyed, but, and Olga mentioned this with both garment decorators and graphic and sign producers, notice that even though sales increased for 68.5% and production for 53.7%, profitability only increased for 37%, as factors such as rising paper prices, excess production capacity, rising labor costs, and even tariffs squeezed profits across the segment even as activity picked up. You'll also notice that only 24.1% increased employment last year. But that's a bit misleading, because hiring was limited by industry-wide, really economy-wide, shortages of skilled or even trainable personnel, and commercial printing's old economy image that is making it increasingly difficult to attract new talent to the industry. About the year ahead, 77.4% expect to increase sales, 81% production, 41% hiring, 58% prices, 58% profitability. A lot of optimism. All those figures exceed the increases reported for 2018. And during this phase of our research, to get the story behind the numbers and context and insight, we conducted a series of follow-up telephone interviews with participants. And during those interviews, folks shared with us their plans for realizing these rather significant increases this year over last year. And for the commercial printers we interviewed, those reasons include much more effective sales and marketing that address not only client recruitment, but also maximize share of clients and client retention, maximizing productivity and production speed through prudent capital investment and streamlining processes across the organization, organization-wide more effective cost control, and improving the effectiveness of employee recruitment and retention by making the case for commercial printing, showing the diversity and richness of careers in the segment and the segment's expanding role in communication. And we will be issuing a report on these very, very insightful follow-up telephone interviews we conducted with participants shortly. What about functional printing? 24 participants identified their primary business as functional printing, which we defined on the survey as printing done as part of a manufacturing process. Applications include print and electronics, marketing and branding of products or parts, and decorative products, often printed at scale. And again, the participants are a diverse lot. Annual sales range from less than 500,000 to greater than 50 million, but most were either small, selling less than $1 million per year, or mid-sized, selling somewhere between 10 and $20 million per year. 3/4 are located in America and 8.3% in Canada. Nearly 61% sell exclusively business to business, but again, about 1/4 also sell to consumers, and a small percentage sell exclusively to consumers, and they've been around a long time. A lot of experience. 85% have been in business more than 20 years. Technology mix. 80% use, you can see the 3 red bars in the middle, 80% use a combination of digital and analog production technologies. Neither technology is dominant for 35%. 40% are mostly or entirely digital, and 25% are mostly or entirely analog. Capacity utilization. As with commercial printers, there is no norm for capacity utilization among functional printers. Again, the rates range from 30% or less to more than 80%. However, as the 3 red bars show, 65% operate somewhere between 51 and 80% of capacity. In comparison, about 1/4 operate at 50% or less, and just 1 in 10 operate at more than 80%. And as with commercial printers, garment decorators, and sign and graphic producers, the majority of functional printers we surveyed are participating in printing industry convergence. 62.5% are operating in at least one segment in addition to functional printing, and 41.7% are operating in at least 2. And for the functional printers who have entered a segment, not for all functional printers surveyed, but for the ones who have entered a segment, on average, graphic and sign contributes nearly 19% of their revenue, garment decoration nearly 15%, package printing and converting 9.3%, and commercial printing 9%. So the functional printers that have begun to participate in industry convergence, on average, are generating meaningful revenue from these alternative segments. Products offered. Broad range of services, broad range of products, broad range of services, from identification to decoration to parts manufacture. The majority offer industrial decals and labels, part marking, instrumentation, dials and overlays, and medical devices. In contrast, just 14.3% offer ceramic tile printing, 9.5% industrial textiles, and 4.8% photovoltaics or solar panels. And here is one of the biggest stories of the survey, certainly of the functional printers part of the survey. 2/3 want to add at least one functional printing product with 3D printing, cited by 23.8%, by far the most popular target. And in fact, if all the functional printers who told us they want to add 3D printing actually do, the percent offering that capability will more than double, from 19% to 42.8%. And I doubt anything on the next two slides is going to surprise you. 85% of functional printers surveyed provide finishing post-production services. They offer a broad range of finishing and post-production services, more than 15 in total. The highest percentages offer lamination and die cutting. And as the next slide shows, there is an exchange of services with other printers. The exchange of production services more common than the exchange of finishing and post-production services, specifically as the blue bars shows. 60% provide production services to other printers, and 55% purchase production services from other printers, while 40% provide finishing post-production services to other printers, and the same percentage purchase those services from other printers. What about performance and expectations? Well, here again, we see the same kind of pattern. Sales increased for 84.2%, production for 68.4%, but profitability increased for only 36.8%. Rising costs and limited pricing power, you'll notice that only 42.1% were able to increase prices last year. Rising costs and limited pricing power contributed to the pressure on margins, but, and again, this was another important, particularly important finding of our research. It wasn't just macroeconomics. It wasn't just the economic environment. Some of the functional printers we surveyed are making investments that reduce current profits but boost profit potential. In fact, one of the company owners Olga interviewed attributes the decline in her company's 2018 profitability in red on the bottom left of the slide, in part to tariff increases, but also to transitioning into new product offerings and implementing lean initiatives throughout the company that she is convinced will boost future profitability. So, and again, we'll talk more about this in the report on the follow-up surveys, but put simply, a whole bunch of functional printers told us, listen, we're going to take a hit to profitability now for a shot at greater profitability in the future. And on the next slide, we see they're optimistic about the future. Majorities expecting increases this year in all 5 of the key performance metrics. And the next slide shows why. Olga put together a very, very informative and insightful slide that compares segment by segment how confident the participants in our research are both in their segment, right, that's the graph on the left, and in the American economy, that's the graph on the right. And notice 2 things. First, in every segment, confidence in the confidence in the segment exceeds confidence in the economy by a significant margin. And second, in 4 of 5 segments, only minorities are confident in the economy. Garment decoration being the exception, where a small majority, slight majority, 51.7%, are confident. And our next slide, and I'm going to end here. The concern, or let's say muted confidence, let's not call it concern, the muted confidence we're seeing across segments from our survey participants is understandable, because the economy has clearly slowed. It's kind of fashionable to assume that we're now going into recession. I really don't think we are, for the reasons you can read about in the next few slides, and in a market watch, an economy watch that we're going to be posting to the SGIA website shortly. I think it's very unlikely we're going into recession. Much more likely, the economy is going to rebound during the second half of 2019, not to last year's brisk pace, but to a more moderate 2 to 2.5% pace for the full year. And that matters. There's a big difference between the economy growing 3% as opposed to growing 2%. As you see on this very last slide, slowing from GDP growth, slowing from 3% to 2% is the equivalent of losing a major industry, but that's very different. That's not recession. Right? There's a big difference between a moderation, a slowing, and recession. And for the reasons on these slides, and for the reasons you can read in the Economy Watch, you'll find shortly on our website, it's much more likely we're going to be slowing this year rather than falling into recession. But we can follow it. The last slide shows 4 indicators that will tell us exactly what's happening. You can follow them on your own at the websites. I listed the websites. You can go up there anytime and follow those 4 key economic indicators. They, more than any other indicator, will tell you where the economy is going and how this is all playing out. Or keep an eye on the Economy Watch that Olga and I will be preparing and updating regularly. Olga?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Angus. Thank you so much. And on this positive note, we would like to finish our presentation, and I would invite you to visit our website, sgia.org. We will be posting our research reports there, and also if you receive the invitation to participate in our survey, Q2 survey, please do so, because we value your information, and this information will help us to build our benchmarks for the financial part.
Okay, well, thank you, Olga and Andy, for the presentation today. We have just a couple questions here, and then we'll wrap it up. One is a clarifying question. And the person says, for manufacturers and suppliers, the term that we're using within our surveys, do you mean like press manufacturers and ink manufacturers? What is the boundary of that group?
Those are the manufacturers of the equipment. Those are the ink manufacturers and also the press manufacturers.
Okay, and then also consumables like materials? Right,
yes, everything.
Okay. And then, the other question is, I know SGIA is sort of retooling the way we're doing these surveys. Can you just give a quick description of how it's changing and what we've added to try to add different, a higher level of shading to the data? I know you mentioned some of it.
Sure. We currently have our survey run 4 times a year by quarters. We shortened our surveys, but it allowed us to ask more specific questions. Our first survey covered markets and products. The second one is covering financial information. Then we will have Q3 survey about wage and salaries, and Q4 will be about strategies and also about equipment purchases. So we divided it to make it easier for the respondents to reply to the survey. At the same time, we are able to provide important information to our members and to our participants throughout the year.
Okay, and then I know you mentioned during the survey the idea of doing interviews with some of the respondents. How does that work, and what do you expect to get out of those interviews?
Andy, do you want to add to that, to the interview part?
Sure. No, absolutely. The follow-up telephone interviews are very important for insight and context, getting the story behind the numbers. They get you depth and understanding that even the most well-designed and executed mail or e-survey couldn't get. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing that already with the surveys we conducted for the product and markets survey, or the follow-up interviews we conducted, that is. They were very, very substantial. We learned a lot, again, about why the gap, for example, between sales and profitability. I mean, that's important. You've got to understand why. Why companies are investing this way or that way, why they're pursuing this market or this segment rather than that segment. So the follow-up interviews do two things. They build that depth of understanding, and the other thing they do is build a relationship with the participants in the research. And one of the things we're doing to make our research even more robust is to build panels of regular participants. And there are a number of statistical reasons, which I'll be happy to discuss with anybody if they would like. There are a number of purely statistical reasons to build these panels, but beyond the statistics of it, again, these panels build relationships. These folks participate in the research quarter after quarter. They understand the research. They understand the seriousness of it, what we're trying to achieve. They will share with us details and insights they will not share with everyone else. So it brings our research to a level that I really don't think anyone else in the industry can match. And again, from the very first set of surveys we did, and Olga, I know you have the more, I think we got, what, Olga, almost 200 companies say they are interested in joining the panel?
Yeah, around, yeah.
Around
more than
200?
That. Yeah. 220, yeah.
Okay, and we had over 100, and again, I could be wrong, but we had many more agree to a follow-up interview than I would have anticipated. Now, we couldn't interview them all, but the fact that they were interested in getting more deeply involved in our research is, to me, very significant and the difference maker.
Great.
Yeah, agree.
Okay, well, thank you both for the presentation today. We are delighted to get such good data for the industry, and we look forward to subsequent reports, emails, everything else coming out. And for those of you who listened in today, we will be archiving this program, and it will be available probably by the end of the day on sgia.org. So if you want to pass it on to your coworkers or some colleagues, feel free to do so. With that marks the end of today's program. Thanks for joining us.